Rose Day. Everyone's ready for roses.
Yes.
So this is one of those classes we do a couple times a year. I'm Trevor, our general manager. We got some new faces at all here today. Everyone, well, nice, welcome. So we got some more grizzled veterans here from the Sunnyside classes. So thanks for coming. This is always one of my faves to do. I've always loved roses. I'm an old dad, you can see, with the white goatee. I got an 8 and 11-year-old, actually turns 12 next week. But so I had a rose garden, then I got married a little later in life, and now I have children. So I don't have the rose garden at the time being, but I do a lot of shrub roses because I like color all summer. I don't quite want the maintenance like I used to have on a rose garden, but I'll go back to that here after my kids are out of the house one day, so we'll get back to it here. You know, this is an easy class because a lot of people come in. We had hydrangea class yesterday, rose class today. Those are the two all summer blooming shrubs. Make this really easy because everybody wants a long season of flower. This is the other one for sun. So hydrangeas we talked about yesterday for shade, for sun. Roses need sun, but this is the superior shrub if I want color week after week after week, all summer long, all the way till frost. I know last year mine were still blooming, I think, when it frosted super hard in early December. So if we take care of them, we're gonna have great roses. So we're gonna cover quite a bit today. I'm gonna show you some pictures. We're gonna talk about kind of care, what to do here over the summer. Just to give you a heads up, we're doing, with our anniversary this year, 75 years, we're trying to do a little extra something for sales here and there. So you got 30% off all the roses today for coming to the class. So we'll keep it quiet and don't tell everybody else. But after class, you go do some shopping, go to the register, just tell them I was at Trevor's boring rose class, and I hit a button and you got 30% off. So there you go. So if we kind of get into some rose basics, you know, first of all is always going to be sunshine. Now someone's probably going to inevitably ask me, well, what if I have all morning sun? What if I don't? You know, I don't really care when the sun is. I've almost felt sometimes if we have morning sun up till 1 or 2 o'clock, sometimes that might be better even than afternoon sun, because now we can dry our foliage off. When we talk about diseases and issues that may come on roses, having dry foliage is key. So all day sun, awesome, but at least 6 hours is going to be the bare minimum. Most people will probably go south side, west side of the house, that's fine, but sometimes we have those places away from the structure, even on the north side, that get the morning sun and a little bit of afternoon as well. Okay, a big thing with this is going to be air circulation. You know, we'd want to combat diseases on roses, and some things you can do naturally are A, sun, and B, making sure we have good air circulation. Packing 8 roses into a little tiny area is not going to be the answer. We get a couple roses and maybe find another spot for some more, but we want to have room for them to grow, room for them to breathe, get air, get sun in there, and then we're going to have much happier plants. You'll notice on all of ours, a lot of times with roses, it's a little nebulous because they'll say medium, they'll say tall, they'll have different heights on there without telling you it will grow 5 feet tall. But if you kind of think of it, you know, we've got stuff back there 3 or 4 feet, 5 foot, 6 foot, 7 foot even on some of the tall ones if you let them go. But pruning will really help dictate my height, so we can always prune to keep them a little bit shorter, especially when we do pruning in spring. In the roses, say you're setting up a little rose garden or you're adding some, you know, I'm never trying to make a box with roses. I want to stagger, you know, make W's. I can make 2 rows even, a tall and a short in front, but I want to stagger them. Again, I'm going to get better airflow. I'm not having those straight lines of boxes when I'm kind of setting up my garden. The big one around here is drainage. You know, coming out of winter, it's going to let you know here pretty quick, coming in this area, coming out of winter, if we have poor drainage, we have heavy clay. Roses got a pretty extensive root system, so this isn't something we can dig down a foot, hit hard pan, and bring a bunch of soil in and think our rose is going to be happy long term. We have to have a good couple of feet for that water to get through in the winter, improve the soil, and then we'll have happy plants forever, essentially. Okay? If you're going to get some roses today, you know, it's kind of the same with all the plants we talk about in my classes. We're going to dig a hole about twice as wide, twice as deep. We're going to make sure we get some good amendment in there and give that rose a great chance to start. You know, great soil always means great plants. That's a key to, I think, everything gardening. We got the good soil. For me, with all plants, including roses, I gotta still do some planting at my house. I meant to get to a while ago, but I'm busy here. So when I put new stuff in, I'm always gonna make a little moat, so everyone will kind of know when I say that. I'll take compost or bark or anything, make myself a little circle around that plant, you know, a foot and a half out, that I can really focus the watering that first couple summer. I can almost fill it up like a lake, let it drain through, and I'm not gonna be out watering soil that I don't need, but I can focus a little extra attention on that new plant that got planted. Now, if we're talking about what we do when we plant, I brought a couple things in here, and we'll see pictures of them here as well on the show. But I always want to amend my soil. Now, this is kind of new in this industry here for the last few years, but we have kind of these hybrid soils. So typically, it was always you bought potting soil, you grew something in the pot, right? Or you got amendment, and I had to mix that in with my soil. Appropriate measures. I can't grow straight in amendments. Everyone kind of know that. I can't go buy a bag of compost, put it in a pot, and plant anything in it. There's no structure. That plant will crash. So I can use it to amend soil, make it better. The rose soil we carry from E.B. Stone is this new hybrid soil, so it can be used for both. So let's say you're going to take a rose home and do it in a container today. You know, we would go buy the rose potting soil versus potting soil. It's just made for roses, got extra goodies in there. We'll show you a picture of that. So when we talk about amending, it's going to be compost, or for roses, I can use that same specific rose mix. 2/3 of my native soil, 1/3 of that rose mixture, and now I'm going to have happy soil to get that rose going. Now you'll see the amendments up here. I didn't bring Epsom salts in. Does everyone kind of know what Epsom salts is? That's one of those little that's the stuff we soak our feet in the bathtub. It's a little different for the garden. But we carry Epsom salts, magnesium sulfate. That's a great amendment really for a lot of plants. I put that on my hellebores, I use it on roses, I use it on anything I want more bud and bloom. When it comes down to it, that's going to increase my flower count. So if we follow that formula on a new plant, I'm going to maybe do about half a cup of the organic rose food. That's got great organic fertilizer plus all kinds of extra goodies, again, specific for roses. I'm going to add some alfalfa meal, usually about a 1/4 cup of that, and then maybe I grab a couple tablespoons of my Epsom salts and sprinkle that in. If I've got existing roses, I'm going to do about twice that much, and this is the schedule I'm going to get on here as we go through the season. Now you're going to water it in, obviously very heavy when you plant it, and then we always mulch. So we get I use pure compost. If you got bark, that's fine as well. But we would just want to get a good 2-3 inches of mulch on there, help keep the weeds down for one, but that's going to help my plants stay happy in the summer. I'll speak for me. I like to jam out hiking, go to the mountains, put the tent up for a weekend. I don't want to worry about new plants crashing, you know, in the 2, 3, 4 days I'm gone. When I get back, that mulch will be that extra insurance for the water needs. Now, there's no qualms about it. This is the one thing I hope. We had a discussion before class. You know, sometimes we forget to feed our plants a little bit. This is one plant we cannot forget to feed. We have to feed roses on a regular schedule all season long. We start this back like 1st of March, to be honest with you, even when they're dormant, and we get on about a 6-week schedule all through the growing season until September. Then we can kind of let things harden off, go dormant, and we're good to go for the next coming season. So we want to get a cup rose food, half a cup of alfalfa, and maybe it's a little bit more of the Epsom salts, maybe 4 tablespoons each time we go through our feeding schedule. It sounds like a chore. It doesn't take you very long to go out, get that bag of rose food out, just get everything fed real quick, water it in, and then off we go. The well-fed roses are egg and a bloom much better. They're going to be much more disease resistant and happy long-term in the garden. So does everyone know when I say that next one, 5 leaves? Does everyone kind of cut their roses back to 5 leaves? I see everybody shaking their head like, okay. Because that's an important thing. You know, I buy a rose because I want flower power. I want bloom, and I want more bloom, and I don't want to wait for more flowers. And if we cut to 5 leaves, that's going to increase your time exponentially of getting another bloom and another bloom after that. So when you deadhead these plants down, you know, if I want a shorter rose, I'm going to look down here for when I deadhead it. Now maybe I'll get it a little shorter. I still get the bud out 5 leaves, but I won't have maybe as tall a plant. If I want the height, then I'm going to stay towards the top of the cane and cut it there. Now I'll get another 1.5 feet of growth with my fresh rose on there. Is that kind of making sense? So that might help you keep your heights down a little bit as you deadhead. But as soon as I clip my flower to bring inside to enjoy, or it's done blooming and I want to get another one, cutting it to 5 leaves immediately is always the best way to go. Okay. Now, one big thing with me, I'll speak for me. I've been here my whole life. I've been doing nurseries for 31 years now, between whites and this place. I have never seen better weather in the month of May. I don't know that we ever will get this nice of weather. So thank you, whoever brought it. But this is probably the exception to the rule. This is usually the month when it's rain and it's humid and we get wet and then we're dry and then we get wet again, and that's going to be disease time. So having clean foliage and dry weather is unbelievable for the roses. So they look awesome this year. I know mine in the yard is probably the better they've ever looked, and I've sprayed the least that I've ever sprayed at my house or here at the nursery. So the big point of that is avoid overhead watering. If I'm a disease, you know, no one's going to avoid powdery mildew, black spot, all these things that we see typically get on roses here. But if I'm a little disease spore, I'm blowing around the wind. And so at night, whenever you're not home, it doesn't matter. That thing's just blowing until it hits a rose leaf. And if it's wet, that leaf is wet, and that fungus has about 4 hours on there wet, now it can attach itself to the foliage, and now we start your mildew, your black spot. Is that kind of making sense? So if we can keep the foliage as dry as possible, perfect. So the point is, don't overhead water. This is the one plant I would prefer you didn't run a sprinkler on. You didn't go out and bless when you got home from work every night. If you have a sprinkler, run the morning, because then again, the sun comes up, dries the foliage off. We probably don't have as many issues going forward. Okay? Yes?
How much water? We just put in a drip system for all our roses. How much water should we be feeding each rose?
Well, that's a great question, how much water to put on a rose, but there's so many factors in that. Like, what's your soil structure? Is it sandy? Does it hold a little moisture? How much compost? And there's so many factors in it. If it was me and you run a drip, do you know how much gallons an hour come out of your drip?
We haven't figured that out yet.
Okay. So figure that out, and I would think typically on a drip it's either half a gallon an hour or a gallon an hour, and most people hook up drip system. I would not do it every day. I would rather have you do it like every 2, maybe even 3 days for a little bit longer time. Now again, it's with all plants. We're watering deeper, we got a deeper root system, and down the road you probably don't have to water quite as much. But if you've got decent soil, you know, probably every 2 or 3 days, I would think is going to be probably plenty if we run it for a little bit of time. Yeah. Okay. So, big thing, if we kind of press rewind here and we go back a little bit in spring and we kind of go through the way these went for the year, we want to start our rows for the season with no foliage from the year before. That's a very important thing. I'll speak for me. I got decent eyesight, but not the best. You're not going to see black spot, mildew, and things on foliage in March. So if I have a rose typically around here, it doesn't sometimes go totally dormant on a milder winter. We typically have nice, fresh, looks like fresh green foliage here in March, mid-March, early April even. I don't want anything left from the year before. So yes, we will go out, prune it back, strip the leaves off, get the first dose of food on it, and let it start over again. I don't want any of that old foliage on there from 2022. I want all brand new from 2023, okay? So my rule has always been, you know, kind of President's Weekend in February, Veterans Weekend in the fall. Those are the 2 holiday weekends I try to remember. Mid-February to 1st of March, I get them cut back to maybe knee-high or so, depending on what rose I'm talking. Not a climber, we're not gonna hack our climber back that much, but we will get our rose cut back to about knee-high. Then come Veterans Day, it's more about what's going to happen this winter. Am I going to break? Does it have big flowers on it? Maybe I get to like hip high or so in the fall. Let it alone in the wintertime. February comes around, and then off we go again for another season. Okay? My rule always is removing anything weak. Dead wood is pretty easy to see. Cut those stubs out of there, get all that dead wood out. I've always said a pencil. You know, think of an old number 2 pencil. If I look at that, anything thinner than that, I don't even want my plant. You look at an old rose and it's got twigs and more twigs. You really clean a lot of that out, you're going to have a happier plant. We get some fertilizer on there, it's going to look even better than new as we come towards spring. Okay? Someone will always ask me, I need to move my rose. Try not to do it in the growing season. That's a tough that's a tough move. If you got to transplant a rose, we would do that in the winter time when they're dormant. I know sometimes projects come up in the summer. We decide to rebuild the deck. We got to do this. We got to move the shed. That rose is going to get trampled by the backhoe. I got to move it or I'm going to lose it. Okay, well then we take as much soil as we can. We get some root stimulator. We water the heck out of it, and we get it transplanted into a pot temporarily, or we get it moved to a new location very quickly so that it hopefully will be okay. Yes?
Root pruning roses in pots? Okay.
You can do a little bit. Again, coming out of winter, I would be out there kind of what we do. We get all of our roses in bare root in January. We hand prune everything. We cut the canes, we cut the roots, we put food, we get them in pots, and then off we go. We grow 99% of our own. So do that probably mid-February or so, you know, 1st of February, mid-February.
How much can a hand cut?
Oh, you could probably, if you got them in a pot, you could probably cut in a good 3-4 inches around there and not have a problem at all. And then you could get it back in that pot with some fresh soil. Be happy. Okay, so one big thing with roses, and again, I don't want to think roses are the plague, but I think most people who grow roses know that we're probably a little more in our climate, Western Washington, typically wet in May even, a little more prone to mildew, black spot, and such things that we do get on roses. They will get on there. My key is get it early and get it taken care of, because if we leave things like that alone, we're going to have issues all summer long. You come to me in July with a picture of a rose, it's like, well, I got black spot top to bottom, what am I going to do? Okay, it's not going to kill the plant. You're going to be stuck with some spotty foliage for the season. We can feed it, we can prune it back. After it blooms, prune it back up maybe a little bit harder, get some food on it, get the spray on it then, and now hopefully the leaves that come back out will be clean as long as we can keep them that way and you can spray for it. So watch early. Aphids get on anything. It's not a rose, it's any plant period. They love new succulent foliage. So if we get aphids on there, we got black spot mildew. There are some strange things sometimes you get on roses. If you're ever curious, bring a sample down, email a picture. We can always try to figure out what's going on. But this is kind of the decision, I think, for the most gardeners. You know, I'll say this, I don't do any spraying of any chemical at my house, so I choose not to, you know, kind of to help the bees, help the environment. I don't want my kids getting in that stuff either, so that's my choice. I'll tell you at Sunnyside, I'm pretty happy this year. We're using no systemics at all, and roses are the one thing that sometimes I got stuck with using on our rose crop, and we're using neem oil now, so our roses are absolutely safe and organic, just like I'm hoping you'll choose to do at your house kind of thing. So we do carry a couple things. I'll show you here. This probably is the last year we're going to have them available to our customers. Sometimes they're the easy way to go, but it's a tough one when we talk about pollinator health in the bees. That's a huge thing in the environment, not just for roses, but for a lot of plants. And choosing the right product, if you use it right, you can do roses organically and still have very clean and very happy plants that won't hurt the bees too. Okay?
I have a question.
Yeah.
For neem oil and the black spots
Yep.
and insects and things like that, it's good for both?
Yeah, neem oil does both. We'll show you here in a second. Yeah, I'll show you. We got it all coming up. So the three choices as of today here are this. You can see right on there. I would apply a drench. So this is something I mix in a watering can. I water the base of my rose that absorbs through the root system and goes through the entire plant. I've got about 6 weeks of both insect and disease total immunity. If you use a drench, you're going to have a very clean plant, but you've also got imidacloprid in there, which is on the pollinator health sheet. So that would be something that will get into the flower, and eventually, again, you're taking a chance you may get some bees out of there too. So rose drench would be one option. I used to use Rose Shield here. This is the foliar type spray with the same idea, that we would soak it onto the plant, protect it from the inside out, both insect and disease as well. Okay? The last choice you got ready to use, I'm trying to hide those two. The last two, Rose RX. And like she just mentioned with neem oil, that's one of those miracle things that was discovered a number of years ago and is good for a lot of things in the garden. That doesn't just do disease, but we do mites, we do insects, we do black spot, we do mildew. We use it on every house plant here that comes into our place. Neem oil is a very good, totally organic, natural solution to a lot of problems. I'll say this, the issue is, like I said, we get on this early. I think you can get neem oil and be just as happy as you've always been. If you don't do it early and you get black spot, you get mildew, yes, it might keep it from getting worse. Yes, we can help it, but you're not going to ever make it disappear. You know, really using any of these, if you let it get in there, you're going to kind of be stuck with it a little bit for the year. We can strip some leaves out, we can feed it, we can prune it back like I said, and we can still have a nice rose. And none of those things are ever going to kill our rose by any means. But if we start early and we get on a schedule, you're going to have very happy roses. Now, I'll say this again for us. I mean, in every other year, and I've been doing this 30 years, this goes back to whites. I was on like every 6 weeks, starting in March, mid-April, all the way through the entire summer until we were done with roses. The chemical gets used. I mean, it has to be used over and over again. This will work just as well, the neem oil, but we just need to do it more often. So I started neem oil back the same time, and it's more like a 2-week interval. If I see the weather, this year I've been saved because it has been so dry in May. I haven't even done anything back there for over a month. So I was on about a 2-week schedule with neem oil. Now I'm able to say, all right, well, we were dry, we're not getting much rain, the roses look great, they're about to bloom. So yes, neem oils work great for us this year, and that's probably what's going to happen hopefully forever. How's that?
So is that neem oil the rose?
So I'll say this, that there's 2 confusing things here with neem oil. I should have brought in the other bottle, because we have neem oil and we have Rose RX. If you flip the label over, which no one ever reads the labels, I hate to say, they're exactly the same thing. So they package this to catch the eye of the rose people. Like, okay, this speaks to me growing roses. Neem oil's like, I don't know, what's that? You know, but it's exactly the same thing. So we were out of this, we buy neem oil. We always have both around, but exactly the same product, whether it's the Windex bottle, RTU, or the concentrate. Okay. Now let's just do this. We'll do questions after. I got all kinds of time for questions. So I'll say this. You know, we talked about bees and pollinator health. I could use the safest thing in the world, and if I walk out at noon and my rose is in full bloom next week and I decide this is my time, I'm going to spray my neem oil, you're going to kill the bees just the same as we killed it with the systemic. So you have to not just choose the right thing, but choose the right time. You get up early in the morning. Don't spray when it's in bloom. Get it before it flowers, which is what I try to do here. Get it on there. Spray late in the day when the bees aren't out in the flowers. Early in the morning when the bees aren't out. There's ways to avoid that, but I want to make sure that's clear, because we've got a lot of people, mainly online, when we record these classes, that email me and say, you know, I can't believe you would tell someone to use this or that, or you didn't do this. So we're covering it all today. We're making this easy. So I can use the safest thing in the world, but if I get it on the flower, they're still going to probably get it on the bee, and that bee is not going to like neem oil all over its wings. He's not going to be able to fly, and he's going to crash and burn. Okay? So you make your choice. I'm not trying to sit here on the pulpit, because this is very easy for a lot of people to get a systemic and not do it as often. You know, that's your choice as a gardener. Essentially, it's your rose. Do what you want to it, but I've given you your 3 options, and we'll leave it at that. You can choose what you want to do. How's that? So if we look at, I got a few of the bags in here. We're trying to get the resealable pouches on everything. So the boxes, you know, I like the pouches in my garage because they got a little Ziploc in there. I can use a little bit, seal it up, put it in the bin, bring it back out when I need it. So the boxes are now replaced by these pouches. But you'll see alfalfa meal, the rose and flower food, magnesium sulfate is our Epsom salts in there. That still's in a box. They're working on a pouch for that. And then Sulpo Mag is this one. Now I've had more people using this the last couple of years, which is a good thing, but it's a little different type of fertilizer. This, I would say, struggling rose, especially early in spring. If I lost a lot of wood, I want more canes. Alfalfa meal and Sulpo Mag are really going to work on the root system. Okay, get me better canes, get me more bud and bloom for sure with this, but that's going to kind of help the other stuff. There's no nitrogen in this at all, so this is not a substitute for using rose food. This would be maybe a little extra something to get that rose a kick, even if it's just once a year. I was always like an early spring, sometimes even in the fall before we got into winter time. That would help me in the fall a little bit as well. So there's our rose soil. We keep that not with our soils. That's the one thing here at Sunnyside. You're only going to find that back in the rose garden back there. So you'll see a bunch of bags out in a pallet. like I said before, if you're planting it in a container, buy that versus our Edna's organic potting soil. That's a superior, it's Edna's best, honestly, with all kinds of extra stuff in there added specifically for the rose. So if you want to get that rose a great chance, if you're growing in a container or in the ground, I can use that as a mix versus compost, but either one of those things are going to really help as an amendment, okay? Then there's our bottles. We got the systemic drench, you got the rose shield, and there I put a picture of both. Neem oil, Rose RX, those two are exactly the same. You'll see them both in the store. I can still use the Rose RX in my house plant or whatever else I want. They're exactly the same product, okay? So now, if we talk about selecting roses here, this is one that we go through every single year. I could take you out, well, I probably can't take you out back because I'm not ready to show them yet, but I test roses here every year. I get both my guys that we buy our roses from, I have them ship me 2024 introductions. I already have them back there, and I couldn't tell you what the name is on them. They send me a fancy label that says ABC-123, and it's a secret until the summer, and then they send me a list like, okay, when I go to order, I want to see how it does, I want to see if it's disease resistant, all those things, and then I can choose to carry it for our customers here who like roses. So for me, they get fed, they obviously get watered or they're going to crash pretty quick, but I do not spray them with anything. I want to see if you took it home and planted it, told me you were going to hit it with neem oil, but never did, are you going to be disappointed that it's just like, okay, that is a garbage rose, that does not belong up here? Because there's some that don't. You know, a lot of roses are grown for Southern California, Arizona, Nevada, opposite of us, dry, hot places that fight no disease at all. We're going to be that cool maritime climate that I'm more concerned about keeping the foliage clean, okay? So I'm testing them right now. We'll see which one's the winner here for 2024, but we'll have those out for next year when we do our rose crops again. One big thing I think a lot of people who come to the rose class hopefully take out of it is you'll see those two words, budded or own root. Does anyone know what those mean? So a lot of roses, if we look at a couple, I probably can show you one of each up here. So if I look at, this is a great one, we go Reflects Our Biceps, Rosie the Riveter. That's a great little orange floribunda. So if I look at the base of that rose, I have a graft there, or what we call budded. So that is a root system that the grower has went along and spliced Rosie the Riveter into to grow that particular rose, okay? Some roses will not grow their own roots, so that's the only way we can purchase some roses. Other roses, I can put my cutting in and I can get it to develop its own root system. So for us, if you look back there, they'll tell you right on their own root on the tag. It doesn't really matter except when we get to winter. So own root roses are going to be far hardier, okay, far more hardier than we would get on a budded rose. It doesn't maybe matter for us as much in Western Washington, but when we have rose death at the base, it's not that the rose isn't hardy, it's that the graft or the bud is not hardy. Does that kind of make sense? So Double Delight, Mr. Lincoln, there's a lot of great classic roses that will never grow a root on its own, period. So if you want one of those, you have to buy a budded rose. But now they're discovering many more, and a lot of the new stuff these days is grown on its own root. That's a trait that the breeders are looking for because, again, it opens up the area they can sell these roses in all parts of the country. I could have it in Cleellum at our farm. We could have it over in the Midwest and not worry about death in the wintertime if it's got its own root system, okay? Now, I got some tree roses in this year. Well, it was our first time in like 20 years. Everyone was asking us for tree roses. So we did get a few. I have a couple left back there. But that is budded here and budded 3 foot off the ground. So be real careful. I tell everyone who's bought one that I've been back there, like, look, you've got to do something with this in the winter or we might have some issues if we get cold, because we need to protect the graft. We can always pile some compost up on. We can protect that graft in the winter. Up here, we need to insulate that stem or grow it in a pot so we can tuck it against the house or the garage for a couple nights when it does get cold. But it's not that, again, the rose is not the problem with the hardiness, it's the graft or the bud union. That's what we would lose if we get cold spells. I got 7 twice in December at my house in Everett. I live right in the middle of Everett, kind of in the old Glacier View neighborhood. And we got 7 2 different times, early December and late December. That's gonna nip quite a few budded roses. 20s, you know, frost, not an issue at all. But when we start dipping down into low teens, single digits, then we gotta be a little more careful. And again, I could take Rosie, pile a bunch of compost up over the base, and I'm probably gonna be good to go for the winter. Come spring, I can fluff that compost out, add my fertilizer on there, and off we go again. Okay, so both are doable. We got patio roses in. Now they gave miniature roses a fancy name, so now we call them patio roses because it sounds so much more fun. I don't have a lot left. I can tell you I'm going to get a lot more next year because people have really liked those. We got about 50, 60, probably only have 6 or 7 left back there now. But a lot of folks want a small 2 foot by 2 foot, something I can grow in a pot. Those are all own roots, so I don't have to worry about the winter time as much in the container. But that would be an excellent choice for just some color. I want a little pot of rose in the sun on the porch or on the deck or whatever it is. That may be an option for you as well. My big thing is that last one. You know, you need to choose your own rose for your own success. I can sit here and tell you about your options and sprays and what kind of rose you want. Ultimately, it's up to you, but I would just say try to be honest with yourself. If you're not going to spray as much as you think you might, maybe go for something that's a little bit easier to grow. If you're not going to feed as much, maybe something a little bit easier to grow, because you'll get the reward if you put a little bit of time in here over the summer. This is the single best, longest blooming sunny shrub you could ever have in the yard, and you add in fragrance on a vast majority of them, and it's the superior shrub here to grow in the sunshine. Okay. Now, if we do types of roses here, hybrid teas, everyone kind of knows hybrid tea rose. I've got a bush, 1 long stem, 1 flower. I can cut it, bring it in the vase if I like. I can enjoy it in the yard, but that's always going to be long single stem rose. Thinking like your florist shop. That's what you're essentially buying is hybrid tea roses for the sweetie in the bouquet. Grandifloras, same thing, long stem. Tend to be maybe a little taller plants on grandiflora. But now I've got usually 3 flowers at the top of the stem, so not 1 but 3. Floribunda is my favorite. I like a little bushier, you know, 4 foot by 4 foot bouquets of flowers. I'm not as interested in cutting them and bringing them in, but I want to see the flower power in the garden, some fragrance. You can get all that stuff, but I'd have maybe a bushier type shrub rose if I chose Floribunda. Climbers. You know, roses aren't going to vine themselves around a structure like clematis and honeysuckle and things. I have to attach it to something. But climbing roses are a great way to go vertical. If I got a sunny arbor, a trellis, a fence, we can attach that in a number of different ways and let that get up off the ground and give me vertical color if we want to go up a little bit. Ground covers, I brought a bunch of ground cover options up here. Drift roses, flower carpet roses. We got the Happy Trail series. Those are kind of fun too. But there's some great roses that we can grow that are low, you know, 2, maybe 3 feet tall that spread and eat up some area. That's what I have a lot of in my sunny rockery. I want the flower, don't want the maintenance, don't want as much spraying. Ground cover roses usually work very, very well. I don't have a lot of Austin roses left. That's one you got to come in early for these days. They've been hard to come by, but we do have a handful back there still. We usually start out with about 300-400 of them. Might have like 20 left now after spring, which is good for business, but I wish we had some more still to enjoy. Austin roses, to me, you're going for fragrance. You're going to have that classic quartered kind of English rose look, but this is the one, probably the worst smelling Austin is going to be better than the best smelling any other rose on the property. And you're going to get your specific, you know, myrrh with a hint of frankincense or pear, you know, all these little perfect British fragrances. You can kind of pick your poison on that one. Shrub roses, again, is what I do a lot of now. We'll show you some of that. That's the kind of stuff, I don't know who lives in Everett. You would live in Everett. You see down the waterfront there by the marina. You got the curbs that are in full bloom. I've seen the city bring the lawnmower, brush cutter through there and just mow the roses off at the curb line, and then what happens? Here we come again. We got a brand new fresh rose for the season. So maybe a little less discriminating, a little less maintenance if we look at something like Rugosa roses, you know, right there on the front. Like I mentioned, tree roses we have, and then we've got a little bit of the patio mini style as well. So be honest with yourself. Will you spray? Will you deadhead? Because again, a lot of the ground cover roses and shrub roses, I don't have to go cut to 5 leaves. I want another flower. I can get away with shearing it back or just letting it grow on top of itself to keep blooming, okay? Do I want to cut flowers and fragrance? You know, a lot of times, you know, every single rose on this property, I can tell you, is classified as disease resistant. That does not ever mean immune. I should say that 10 times, because I think people see that word on a tag and they think, oh sweet, I'll never have mildew or black spot. That doesn't exist, except for rugosa rose would be the one that would never get any of that. So resistant is great, but a lot of times the more disease resistant that's bred in, we lose fragrance. So very rarely do I see a winter rose out there, and they're the ones I tend to get a lot of that have really good fragrance and are pretty bulletproof when it comes down to it, okay? Do I want just summer color? You know, that's where I'm at. I don't want, you know, I want roses because they bloom all summer. So I want to look out and see flower here and there in the garden in the summertime. So by choosing shrub roses or low maintenance ones, that's where I get what I want. Because again, there's no better summer blooming shrub for the sun than you're going to get from the rose. So I'll show you quite a few pictures here. We'll whip through pretty quick. But a lot of these are some of the ones we have still. Some maybe we might be getting low on. These are ones we typically would carry every year. I'm kind of a OCD guy with everything, but especially control of our rose crop. So I do not like buying in roses from other growers. I don't know what they've treated them with. I don't know how they've been pruned, on and on. So we get all of our about 2,000 bare root roses in January. The whole crew's here. We have kind of a fun week or two. We hand prune, hand plant, do everything ourselves, and we start to have full selection usually by mid-January. So it sounds funny, why would I come down here in January and get a rose? But it's a great time to get full selection, and you can still pop them right in the ground. They'll be happy as campers. You can get them in early and get a kind of a head start for the season. So a few ones here you'll see, like Perfume Factory, All My Lovin', anybody likes Downton Abbey on BBC, that'll show. They've got a whole series out of there. Pretty Ladies, one of those. Love at First Sight, I think I actually brought up one here today. There's one about ready to bloom. Painted Porcelain, an interesting kind of silvery paint. We still have some of those back there. We always do some great reds. That's always still the most sought after classic rose color. Everybody wants a good red. I'll be honest, most people go for Mr. Lincoln still. We still carry a lot of them. That's probably the worst red rose for mildew, black spot, all the above. So it's got the best fragrance, but there's our exchange. High maintenance is exactly right on Mr. Lincoln. So look at Veterans Honor. We get quite a few other reds, and I think you'd be just as happy with the color. Maybe not quite as heavy fragrance, but much better when it comes to the black spot mildew, and they're not quite as tall. I think I've seen some Mr. Lincolns clocking in at 8 feet tall plus a couple of times over the years. Henry Fonda. I'm out of Henry, and I'll tell you, I love yellow. Yellows and oranges are my favorite rose colors, and I am on a mission to find some new good yellow hybrid teas. You're going to see that here next year, because I think that's the one color, especially in hybrid teas, we've been kind of lacking selection on, is good quality yellow ones. White's made a huge comeback. I hate to say, I think I'm out of Sugar Moon. If there's any back there, it might be one at this point. I get 50 of those a year. That should tell you that is the single best white rose I have ever seen introduced. We get some others, Honor and JFK and the Pope, you know, a couple other good white ones. But man, for smell, disease resistance, and you want a white holdout for next year, Sugar Moon is by far the best white I've ever seen come in to a nursery. We get a few of the Milan roses from Star. Those are going to be super heavy on the fragrance. So we get Papa Milan is a good red one. Francis will give me that pastel pink, but those will be big, huge flowers, and again, very heavy fragrance on the Milan style roses. And I threw Good as Gold in there because that's, again, not yellow, but kind of that golden, orangey yellow color, kind of a little different when it comes to the rose. If we're going to go apricot, it's always Just Joey. That's still the best one by far. We get asked for Brandy, we get asked for other ones. It's not that you can't grow them here, but again, if we're going to match disease resistant, the Pacific Northwest, and our climate, just Joey's the perfect way to go to get kind of that apricot colored one. And I threw Pinkerbell on here because I think this 20 years ago I would have said was not going to happen. This was a total florist rose look. South America, moved to the jungle and grow them in the heat. We didn't have any roses that kind of had that painted edge on them where you get two colors. Now there's a whole bunch of good ones up here. So that's been a big trade in breeding the last 10 years where they've gotten a lot of these roses where I look at it two different angles and I see two different colors. You can see that first one I put up there. That's a great example. Wow, that's one color. Look at the side, I got cream. So that was a florist rose thing to me. No chance to grow up here up until the last few years. They've got some really good ones back there if you like some fun colors. So grandifloras, the purplest thing on earth for rose is that twilight zone. If you like purple, I don't want to, how many people are in here? That's about that many left back there because that's the most I get of any rose on the property. I think we started with 60 of them and I might be 10 or 12 left back there. But that is the darkest purple I've ever seen, and that is a super fragrant rose. If you like deep dark purple, go straight for that. That twilight zone is spectacular. Pop art, if you like some funky colors, that's kind of a fun one that came out a few years ago. You can see kind of that English rose look again, but multiple colors kind of blended in. Pinks and yellows, kind of a fun little color. Parade Day, good example of those variegated flowers again. I've got one color and I've got random striping of another contrasting color on there. And I call that the Sandra Bullock rose, miscongeniality. So that was one of the first ones that came out. We always get a few of those. I think I've still got some Sanders back there. But that's one, again, I look at it and you've got that beautiful painted edge on it. Really a nice striking flower, especially if you like them cut to bring inside. Rest in peace to Queen. I had to put the Queen on this year because that's still been around a long time. I think that's Rose of the Year probably 40 years ago. Kind of still as popular today, and I got extra Queen Elizabeth this year thinking folks would like to plant one for the Queen. So we still got some Queen. And Anna's Promise, another one of those BBC Downton Abbey roses. So a taller grandiflora with that really nice orangey apricot color. That's been a really good performer here as well. Then you'll see a lot of the two main growers these days, Weeks and Star roses. We get bare root from both of them. Jackson and Perkins does not exist. I hate to burst your bubble. I see them online and I just kind of chuckle like, yeah, they were gone about 25, 30 years ago. So they buy their roses from these people and then put a different tag on it and sell it to you like you got it from Jackson and Perkins. So the breeders that breed, Star and Weeks still, they've really gone to kind of copy David Austin a little bit, I hate to say. They've really gone heavy for the English rose look. Heavy fragrance, quarter flowers. You can see on both of those, if I took the names off them, it might look like Golden Celebration, David Austin, you know, and Molyneux or one of the other Austins there with the apricot color. So try to kind of you get a little bit of that heavy fragrance again, but more of that David Austin look. Floribundas, some really good colored Floribundas. Again, I would have never said lavender, blue, those kind of tones. They're getting some really good lavender blue ones out there, like Arctic Blue. Burst of Joy might be my favorite because I like orange, so that's one for me. Celestial Night, again, plum purple, really cool color. Looks like David Austin. That's got great fragrance too. That's another great one. I always chuckle when I see ketchup and mustard because I hate both those things, but that's what it is. I mean, you couldn't name that in a better way. You got ketchup and mustard all in one little rosebud there. So that is surprisingly popular around here. I hate to say, every year I get another 5 of those. I don't really care for it, but it's a decent rose, and it is a very interesting color. We'll leave it at that. Again, if you're going white, Easy Spirit's the way to go. I think I might have brought one of those up here. Yeah, right there. So it'll look like it's light pink in the bud, and when that opens, that is the far superior white Floribunda. If you're going to go for decent fragrance, minimal disease, all the rest of it, you'll see on a lot of the Floribundas like that. Julia Child's coming up on the next one there. They have this Easy to Love series. It sounds kind of fun. Easy to Love. So Easy to Love from Weeks, that's what they bred for, was You get some pretty good fragrance, especially with Julia, but I'm gonna really cut my disease down and I'm gonna get own root. So that might be a way, if you like Floribunda roses, look for that easy to love logo on some of those tags back there. There's probably 7, 8, 9 of them in our inventory. Those are very, very easy to grow. Yeah, if I was to pick one rose, I say this at every rose class, I like yellow, gets a little bit of pink in it too, but Julia Childs would be as close to indestructible if we get away from shrub roses as I think exists on the property. That's got really good fragrance, easy to grow, its own root system, very hardy, and we get hardly any issues with that, even if we did not spray. I would not tell you to walk away from it. We feed it still and all that, but I hear from a lot of customers over the years at this class, man, I listened to you and got a Julia Childs. I've been really happy with the performance. It's a really easy one to grow. Life of the Party, kind of a newer one, looks like our old Peace Rose, those colors. Now we're in a Floribunda. And again, that mythical lavender color. I've tried a lot of lavender blue roses over the years. Not to be blunt, but I'll be blunt. Most of them are garbage in Western Washington. So you're not going to find a lot of lavender here except for the ones I think are halfway decent. And Love Song, by far, is the best lavender we've ever had. That's one we will always stock. We got a little Frida if you want to go like tie-dye, a little artist color there. So Frida's got some fun flowers on it. We still got some Frida back there. And I brought up Rosie. She's hanging up here. If you like that tangerine orange color, that's part of that Easy to Love series as well. Okay. Now this one probably is for nostalgia, but that right there is Sun Sprite. You can come up and smell it. I think it smells wonderful. It's got kind of a little fruity fragrance to it. It's a yellow, which I like personally. But for some reason, Sun Sprite's always the first rose to bloom. You know, in the nursery you can see everything's just, one is always a week or two earlier. If we had typical weather in April, those are blooming by Mother's Day. We always have those blooming by mid-May. This year it's about 2 weeks late here with the crummy April rain. Now Sun Sprite is not disease resistant at all. I want to make sure that's clear. It's good resistance, but that's not one we're going to walk away from. That one you need to spray a little bit to keep it clean. But it's got great yellow. It's got great fragrance, and I think probably it's still the best yellow Floribunda for old school ones. And we got Pumpkin Patch, a little bit of orange if you like that. Some climbers, 4th of July, Joseph's Coat. You can see some fun flavors there. We do a lot of the Eden series. I am really cleaned out of a lot of climbers. For some reason, this is like 3 straight years. Everybody wants to do climbing rose, which is cool. I'm going to get even more next year. We'll have all this in stock. I would say this on climber, try to get yourself down here early and get in the ground. You know, in February, March, seems like by late March, early April, I'm cleaned out of most of the climbers we can get in. We still got some good ones back there, but a lot of these are sold out. So lots of different Edens, white Eden, pink Eden, pretty and pink Eden, red Eden. We get all the Edens in. That's a funny trivia fact. I was like, I wonder one night couldn't sleep, was like, I wonder what the #1 selling rose in the world is. It's Eden, believe it or not, which kind of was shocking to me. Don Juan, good old classic red. If you like some funky flowers, that purple splash is kind of fun for a big climber. That's a nice showstopper. And then Golden Opportunity. I think that's this one right here I brought up. So it'll look kind of a little orangey when it's in bud, and then it opens up to that kind of golden yellow. That's a really cool color for climbers as well. A couple of patio roses, and again, I want something miniature, like 2 foot by 2 foot. We get a few colors of those. You'll see the rugosas. So again, simple flowers. They got great smell, but if you like rose hips, you know, I want those little tomatoes on there for added interest in the fall, winter. That's rugosa rose. If I sprayed rugosa rose, I would burn it. So that is the one rose up here that is immune to all of this. Yes, I might get some aphids on it, not the end of the world, but I'm not going to get mildew or black spot on a rugosa rose, period. So that one is one we would put in to naturalize or fill an area. Sometimes you'll see those, like I mentioned in Everett, curb plantings. You know, I got a sunny bank. I just want to cover it and let it grow roses, keep the neighbor out, whatever it is. Yes, the deer will still nibble on them, which still is shocking to me, but that is zero maintenance, no deadheading, no nothing. I just let a rugosa rose go and I'm happy. We can do tall rugosas, you know, 6 foot white, or this is the red, which is really kind of magenta pink. But there's a lot of great hybrids now. If I want something like 3 foot-ish tall that spreads a little bit, look at a lot of the new hybrid rugosas back there. Like snow pavement, purple pavement. You'll even see some colored hybrid rugosas like Hansa, Linda Campbell's a red one. We typically have Topaz Jewels, a yellow one. A lot of those, again, would be at the bottom of the list as far as needing to spray if we were going to go to easy to grow. See, ground covers, I got a Happy Trails up here. Got to sing the Western song with that one, right? So we got Sunshine, Rainbow, Sunset. God, I always forget the 4th one. There's 4 colors out there now, so we always have 4 colors of Happy Trails. Oh, Playful, it's on the next slide right there. So Playful, Happy Trails. Again, I'm not buying these because I want to smell. I'm buying those because I want color. I want low, easy, no deadheading maintenance that's going to cover some area, give me all summer bloom, and not have to do, again, as much spraying, and definitely not deadheading. Drift, same way. I bought a bunch of the drifts up here. That's the one rose we buy in. I'm going to plant some more ourselves, I think, next year so we can pick our colors a little better. But there's probably 9, 10 colors of drift roses now. So I could pick white, yellow, pink, popcorn, red, any color you like. You can find a drift rose in that color too. Again, if I'm looking to cover some area. And then flower carpets. You know, this is another one. I don't want you to think like a foot tall flower carpet, because if we don't prune flower carpet, we probably still get up about 3 foot, maybe even 4 if you let some stems come up. But again, I'm not going for smell, I'm just going for color. You can see by that landscape there, I just want a big swath of color all summer that I don't have to deadhead. I feed it, probably don't have to spray it quite as much as a typical rose either, okay? Then we've got the good old Austins. So I put a few on here. This is another one we'll try to get more of next year for sure, but coming early for these. Everybody seems to be going towards Austin roses these days, and no matter how many I get, we'll probably still sell out before I'd like to. So here's a few. Olivia Rose, named after his granddaughter. That should tell you everything. I think that's his best pink one. Darcy Bussell's a great red. I like the Poet's Wife for a yellow. We get a few good yellow Austins in, but I think Poet's Wife is excellent. Crown Princess Margareta is going to give me that kind of apricot tones again. Windermere, go for the white. Sometimes also Winchester Cathedral is another really good one we get in typically. And then Golden Celebration, another good little yellow one there. So these were the things that I tried last summer, and I think we still have. I always get extra of these because a lot of our customers like some of the new roses every year. So I think most of these we still have a pretty good chunk of back there. So Heavenly Scented was new for this year. Hybrid Tea, Morning Glow, nice little Floribunda. I think that's picture perfect if I remember right, the one with the 2 colors right there. That's another new hybrid tea with the 2-tone color. I call that the Christy Brinkley Rose if you like old Billy Joel songs. So we go Uptown Girl. That's a tall grandiflora. I know there's a few of those back there still. These 2 I'm out of. I should have just deleted the slide, but those flew out of here like in February. I'm going to get a lot of both of those next year. I'll tell you, I tried it and I couldn't believe it, but that raspberry cupcake smells like fresh raspberries. I don't know how they did it, but it is a really cool fragrance. Of course, I brought that up at the February Rose class, and then we promptly sold out in about 20 minutes. So I'll get some extras of those. We'll have those in early next year. And then Top Cream, I thought was a really nice white. Again, you can see that English David Austin rose look. These are both from Star Roses. They give us the look of the Austin, heavy fragrance like Austin, a very specific fragrance, which I think is kind of new for these guys, but both great roses. And last one here, I went back and looked, and I still got a chunk of these, which is surprising, because if I was picking my rose of the year, it would be this one. So I think this is a really cool color, that plummy purple. It's got the cream on the back of it, the 2-tone flowers. This is an own root shrub rose, so if I'm going for indestructibility, hardiness, lack of spray, but I still got fragrance, easy to grow. If you like that color, that's a great choice, I think, for a sunny garden. That would be a very low maintenance rose that would give you bouquets of fragrant flowers and color it a long time in the summer. Okay. So that's always our website. You know, Nicole, our marketing director, and I spent a lot of time in the winter kind of revamping everything for the next season. So we'll do it again this year. But last winter, all the rose lists went up, pictures of everything, descriptions of everything. You can find kind of everything we start with on there. And again, if you can't find it still, you can make a little note in the gardening notebook and say, okay, I got to get in early next year because I want to add that one to my rose collection. So we would always have maximum availability about mid-January, typically by mid-March, late March. Some of them are starting to sell out, the more popular ones. And we still got great roses back there, but certainly if there's one you saw on the show he's out of, we've got to save a little spot for it, and we'll get you one in 2024. Okay? So was that rose overload? So we got hopefully we got some good questions. We got any good questions? And like I said before, if you want to go out and do some shopping, we still got a great selection back there. They've all been fed. They've gotten the neem oil on it, so they're nice and naturally cared for. And they're on 30% off. That's a more discount than I've ever done for a rose class. So take advantage of the discount today. Yes.
Just to clarify on the rose RX, which is basically the neem oil, it's every 2 weeks.
If you can, every 2 weeks. I mean, that's kind of what I'm shooting for here. And again, I want to make it clear with neem oil, if you can get it on early and get it on and protect your plant, you're not even going to get the problem in the first place. I think that's the benefit of neem. If you want to go green, help the bees, be natural, get it on early and keep up on it. If you wait till mid-June and you come to me and say it's covered in mildew, what do I do? Okay, we can keep it from getting worse and we can cut it back and get some clean leaves and still get bloom. It's not that. But you're not going to get it to disappear with really any of them at that point, but especially with neem.
I've got a question about that because I've got a huge climber.
Okay.
And it gets, the spots on it. But it's so hard to,
to get it sprayed.
Yeah, so I kind of have just
let it go.
Yeah.
Well, and it's not the end of the world. I mean, the natural gardener would say, oh, well. I mean, it still blooms. You still got fragrance. So it's not that the plant's going to die. But if you... maybe if you, I don't know when you start using neem, if you got there a little bit earlier, like right when all the fresh foliage comes out in March, even if you got it on once in March, once in April, once we dry out, you're okay. But it's the key to me is getting it on early.
Okay.
Yeah. Because then it's almost a preventative. Yeah.
I have a couple of questions. So I have just moved into a house and it has a Rosa rugosa. It's like 6-7 feet tall.
Oh yeah.
Can I cut
Oh,
it?
you whack that thing back as much as you want.
Yeah.
That's an easy answer on rugosa.
And then, so I have another rose, and I don't know how old it is. So is there an age where roses are no longer going to have the energy?
That's a great question. She asked if there's an age. I would have to say yes on a rose. I mean, I've done this. I don't go to many people's houses anymore because I don't have much time. But I went to a lot of people's houses on roses over the years that had rose gardens. I got this 30 years ago, 40 years ago, 20 years ago. What do I get rid of it, get rid of it, get rid of it, and get some new ones in there? It's probably not, it's probably the graft again. If we look down at the base and you're like, okay, I got 2 canes. If I've tried feeding it, I've tried doing all that other stuff, and I haven't gotten more wood, I think it's probably time to go and we just get it replaced with even the same one or maybe a more modern one that looks like it.
I'm going to fight for it for a little bit.
Some of them, I'm the same way. I mean, I like old school, and it's tough to get rid of old friends sometimes that have been in the garden for a while. Yeah. Yes?
What about roses that never bloom? Get rid of them?
No, never bloom.
Yeah,
okay.
Never bloom. I got one rose that's never bloomed.
Well,
So I'm getting tired of it.
there's got to be a reason for that because that is against all things roses.
I know.
Well, we maybe come talk to me after class because I think we can find a reason why this is happening. There's some old school roses. I don't really carry a lot of old roses that they get pruned wrong or this. Maybe you don't get flower. Or they only flower once and they're done. There's some old roses like that. I don't carry any of that stuff here. I have a feeling I didn't really bring it up. Maybe let me see if I can find one on one of these. I go through for hours on our roses about 6 weeks ago, and I cut out what I call blind shoots, so I can see one right there. So if I look at that Rosie the Riveter, what's going on here? I've got long stem. My bouquet is ready to go. Why don't I have one here? If I look at this cane, if you can see it, See how that forked at the top? And I do not have a bud emerging. If I cut this down to 5 leaves, now I get a bud come out of it. Does that make sense? So I'll tell you what happens here, and I'm surprised. I probably cut out 1,000 of them in like early April here, because I do it every year and I want our roses to bloom as much as they can. But when we have the worse, the cooler, the wetter the weather is in March and April, the more of that you're going to get for your first bloom. So without looking at yours, maybe you can take some pictures of it and maybe email me one. I got a feeling you might have one that just is getting a bunch of blind shoots and just sitting there and doing nothing. If we cut those stems down to 5, I think you'll see buds come out, and then off we go for the season. Okay?
That's good.
I have a
You got any more?
question.
Yeah, go ahead.
I actually have 2 questions. I'm 100% brand new.
Okay.
So, what do you mean when you say cut it down to 5? 5 leaves from the top,
Yeah,
5
so-
leaves from the bottom?
So, well, either way. So if I take this stem right here, if everyone can see that, we'll keep picking on Rosie here. So if I look at any of these stems and I look at these leaflets, you know, which ones have a group of 5? That's the key point. So if I'm going to prune this down, let's just pretend these blooms have opened, they've done their thing, I've enjoyed them, they've turned brown, and now I want another flower. I can cut anywhere on this stem above 5 leaves. That's going to be the quickest point where I'll get another bud shoot come up and more bloom, okay?
Okay.
So with the rose, we always want that open center. I don't want canes. You can see our plants. I don't want a bunch of mess because I want air circulation, right? So I'm going to always try. This is a perfect example. I got 5 leaves here. I got 5 there. She's a happy one. I got 5 everywhere. So if I want taller, I'm going to probably stay up towards the top, and then I'll be up that tall in the next bloom. Does that make sense? If I don't want height and I want a little compact, I'm going to go down here as low as I can and cut 5. But I'm always going to try to find one on the outside, not the inside, okay? Because if I cut here, now my shoot's going to come up and it's going to go right through the middle of the plant, and I'm going to be a little more congested, which isn't the end of the world. But again, I want that kind of open center where I get sun, where I get air, which means less disease.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes. that's
Okay.
good to know. I have a second question about
Yeah.
the neem.
Yeah.
So, because I'm totally brand new,
Yeah.
and I did get black spots, so
Yeah.
I know I have a fungus, and
Mhm.
I got neem's oil for it. Is there formula?
Formula.
So I just got neem's oil.
Neem oil? Okay.
Yeah.
It should tell you on the directions. I don't know what, was it this brand?
No, I didn't get it
Okay.
here.
Well, it doesn't matter where you got
So
it, but
it-
look on the instructions, because some things we sell what we call RTU, ready to use. I don't do anything but this except take it home, open it up, and trigger spray to wet my plant down.
Right.
Okay, I got neem. If you've got concentrate, typically it's a couple tablespoons to a gallon of water. We would put a little sprayer, pump it up, and then do the same thing and spray.
Okay.
You know, water's cheap. You're always going to get way more for your money getting a concentrate versus buying a Windex bottle kind of thing.
What about dish soap? Some of the things I've read said put dish soap in with it.
Well,
Is that-
dish soap is kind of it's not a bad thing, okay? You can absolutely do that because it actually helps a little bit like glue. So whatever spray I use, if I add a little bit of dish soap in there, it actually will stick it to the foliage a little bit better. All the sprays we carry from Bonite come with that already included with it kind of thing. You won't have to worry about most of it. But dish soap sometimes kills aphids is the other one. Some people will put a little bit of dish soap in as a simple kind of home solution to control aphids or some simple bugs. But in that case, it's going to work as like a surfactant. It kind of glues it onto the leaf a little better, so we don't have as much runoff, and it sticks a little bit better.
Okay.
Okay. Yes.
Are any of the supporting products on sale at a sale price because of the class, like the neem oil and?
I did not put I just put the plants on this time. So we got the plants on 30, but not the fertilizers or the sprays.
To clarify about the 5 leaves, you're saying to count down 5, like 1, 2, 3, 4, or cut underneath one that has 5
Cut right
leaves?
above any 5-leaf set. So
Okay.
again, if I had this, I've got 5 on almost every one of these stems from Rosie. So if I wanted to keep it, I could cut it right there. Then my shoot would come out again. I can go there. I can go all the way down to there. So I want to cut just above a set with 5 leaves. You'll see a lot of times those rows, 2 colors of growth, right? So you look at it a couple days later. Ooh, look at that! I can see the red coming out, and then here comes another bud, sets another flower, and then off we go. Okay. All right, you guys good?
Yeah.
Hey,
Great
thanks for
class.
coming.
Thank you.
Enjoy the sunshine. It's been beautiful again today.